What's going on, guys? What's up? Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a fantasy fight video. It's been a while since I've done one of these. Talked about throwback fighters against more modern day fighters. Got a fun one. Frank Shamrock versus George St. Pierre. This one will most likely go down at 170 pounds. Frank wasn't really a huge guy. He did fight at light heavyweight in the UFC, but in later years dropped down in weight. I think 170 would be a good weight for this fantasy fight. So let's get into this and talk about their skill sets. All right, so first of all, Frank Shamrock, legend, way ahead of his time. Ahead in terms of grappling, ahead in terms of conditioning, cardio. He was well-rounded. He could strike. Trained kickboxing with Maurice Smith. Of course, his brother Ken Shamrock training with him as far as like the grappling and all those Japanese shoot fighters. Frank to me was a pioneer, similar to Ken in a sense of the leg lock game. And again, like overall, the whole package, well-rounded conditioning. George St. Pierre, what can you say about him? The potential GOAT. Talk about well-rounded. I mean, that's pretty much like the basis of his success. Not really a lot of weaknesses. Could exploit yours. Great striker. Phenomenal grappler. Arguably the best wrestler ever in the UFC. Which is crazy because he doesn't have the credentials, the heavy wrestling background. But just a freak, picked up to wrestling like that. And actually got the better of wrestling against highly decorated wrestlers. That's how much of a freak George St. Pierre was. Super high fight IQ. That's another thing with GSP. Cardio and conditioning, kind of like his forte for the most part. Although in some fights you could argue it looked like GSP was gassing a little bit, but overall great conditioning. So how could a fight between Frank Shamrock in his prime against George St. Pierre in his prime play out? I'm going to say that I think GSP is the overall better fighter. Skill, don't get me wrong, Frank Shamrock, super skilled. I think the level of skill that he reached in his career, GSP eclipses it in his career. Of course, there are certain aspects that Frank would just be better at. Specific things, maybe like the leg lock game. But George St. Pierre is not a slouch in any facet of MMA. If we're talking about striking, maybe Frank has more power. But overall skill, gotta give it to GSP. Moves better, greater variety of attacks, faster in my opinion. So striking department, George St. Pierre. Grappling, definitely give it to GSP. But Frank, he's a threat. He would fare better on the ground, I think, than striking. But certainly, George St. Pierre will have the advantage. That wrestling he has, it's so difficult to deal with. He was doing the Usman and Khabib to people way back before it was a thing. I think GSP beats Frank pretty much everywhere. I don't think it'll be a squash match, but it'll be a pretty dominant win. I don't necessarily see GSP tapping out Frank Shamrock. Possible TKO. That's standing and on the ground. Most likely on the ground from ground and pound. Dominant decision win by GSP. Most likely the result. And if I had to put a ratio on this fight, I'm going to say 70-30 GSP, prime versus prime at welterweight. But make no mistake, guys, Frank Shamrock's one of my favorite fighters of all time. Absolute legend, pioneer of the sport, deserves all the respect in the world. I think Frank could actually come back if you take a prime Frank Shamrock, via some time machine. I think he could beat some welterweights today. That's how good, tough, and well-rounded he was. Anyway, guys, let me know in the comment section, who do you think would have won this fight, prime versus prime, Shamrock versus GSP? We'd love to read your thoughts. If this is your first time at the channel and you enjoy this segment, consider hitting that sub button. Like and share, guys, as it helps the channel grow. Super appreciative. And until the next segment, guys, you all take care.